What up, Fight World? It's your boy E going back with some more boxing. Now, I wanted to do this right after the fight, but just been real busy grinding, trying to bring you guys new content, working on some things outside of that, some filming, editing, the usual. So, I want to talk about Andre Ward, spend some time talking about Andre Ward and what's next, and the egos, what's next. So, let's get right into it. As far as Andre Ward, spectacular performance against Edwin Rodriguez. At first, it was a little shaky. Rodriguez came out wild with nothing to lose because virtually he had nothing to lose. He couldn't earn the belt. He was ineligible because he didn't make weight. He didn't make weight, and he had to pay a fine of 20%, which is $200,000, half to Andre Ward, half to the commission. And really, that's most of his incentives. I mean, he was still getting one. He got 1 million total minus the 200,000. So, I mean, he had a paycheck to look forward to, but I'm sure he was pretty disappointed. And he kind of came out like he didn't care if he got disqualified. And again, a portion of his incentives were taken away just simply by not making weight. So the fight started off rocky, came out wild and really aggressive. Andre Ward, being a fighter with ring rust, had to, clinch a little bit and buckle down, I guess you will. I guess Edwin Rodriguez came out with the mentality that I'm the bigger, stronger guy, and I'm just going to bully him. He's been out of the ring for 14 months, so that was his game plan early. Looked like Jack Reese had his work cut out with them because both guys, there was some tension in there. Andre Ward being a fierce competitor, Edwin Rodriguez, same thing. And neither man wanted to back down, and neither man really wanted to listen. So Jack Reese had to deduct points from both, and from that point on, it was really the Andre Ward show. I think he realized, like, okay, the ref's serious. This is potentially my paycheck. This is my comeback fight, so let's get sharp and let's get to the point. And that's what he did, and he thoroughly outboxed, landed the better, cleaner, harder shots on Edwin Rodriguez, showed defense, showed very little ring rust, in my opinion, and it was a good performance. It was a good, solid performance. And it's funny to me how some people continue to overrate certain people, and they have fighters like Andre Ward, and they can't appreciate them. And it makes no sense to me. People overrate fighters like Ruslan Provodnikov, who, don't get me wrong, he's an entertaining fighter. He's exciting to watch. He has heart. He has a chin. He's very tough. He punches hard. I give him that. But people see certain performances and go off the deep end. Like Miguel Cotto beats Delvin Rodriguez, and all of a sudden, Cotto's back. He needs a Mayweather rematch. Or Ruslan Provodnikov at 140 beats Mike Alvarado, who already had his first career loss to Brandon Rios, and almost got knocked out in the second round of the rematch with Rios. And he was able to compose himself, and his face was busted the fuck up after the end of the Brandon Rios fight. And Ruslan beats him after all of that. And I'm not even mentioning Bradis Prescott and Alvarado or anything like that. And I'm not saying Alvarado's a bad fighter by no stretch. But he's been through wars. Back to back to back to back to back wars. And then Ruslan beats him, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, Floyd's ducking Ruslan and all kinds of stuff. Yet you have fighters staring at your face that are anomalies, not doing the normal thing. Like if you look at Bernard Hopkins, Floyd Mayweather, Andre Ward, Mikey Garcia, there are certain fighters who possess a certain mentality, a certain skill set. Rigondeaux is also another fighter you can throw on that list. And there's tons of other guys who are showing you how good they are and why they're so good. Like what they're doing is not the normal. Like you look at Mikey Garcia. This is a guy who is really like 2 fights removed from fans saying he ain't fought nobody. He's never fought a good name. He's fought bums. That's why his KO percentage is so high. Then he steps up and has his biggest fight to date at that point, which was against Orlando Salido, knocks the motherfucker down 4 times. And Orlando Salido gave problems to plenty of people and demolished Juanma Lopez. And Mikey Garcia tames him. Then he goes in, fights Juanma Lopez, does what it does. He came in a little bit overweight. and he moves up right after that in weight and takes on a tough Puerto Rican champion, Puerto Rico's last champion. And Danny Garcia is Puerto Rican, but he's Puerto Rican American versus Rocky Martinez, who is Puerto Rican of Puerto Rican descent from Puerto Rico. So that's what I mean by that comment. And he moves up in weight and gets knocked down off of a flash knockdown, and then for the rest of the fight, he's imposing his will and the better game plan and landing his shots, eventually stopping a tough competitor who hasn't been stopped before. So certain fighters possess certain skills. Mayweather, another person. Mayweather, you look at him, takes retirement, fights one time a year, except for this year, and he still looks like he's never lost a step. He went to jail, came back, took a year off, or it was a year between his last fight with Cotto and Robert Guerrero, and it didn't look like he lost a step. Andre Ward, same thing, cut from the same cloth. Motherfuckers coming off of an injury, a shoulder rehab, injury surgery, and he's been inactive for 14 months. You don't realize how hard that is. Imagine going even a regular, like let's say you work retail. Imagine being fired from your last job, getting unemployment for 14 months, and being totally out of the workforce. You don't have to answer to anyone. You don't have a manager. You don't have to punch in. You don't have to bring your lunch. You sit at home and play PlayStation 4 or whatever the fuck. And your unemployment runs out in 14 months. And you have to get a job because you have a car note and you have to pay your rent and all that. Some people have a difficulty acclimating back to the work environment. Like they might be coming late, they don't like punching in, or they forget to punch in, or they're not used to being at work anymore because they took 14 months off and they were on unemployment for 14 months, let alone a fucking one-on-one combat sport. So what Andre Ward is doing is nothing less than spectacular, in my opinion. Like, that's not normal to come off of a surgery slash injury, take 14 months off, and look like you never missed a step, cause your opponent to miss, frustrate your opponent, cause your opponent to swing wildly and miss, and just all kinds of stuff. So props to Andre Ward, like I said, a true talent, not to mention the Olympic gold, not to mention the Super 6 tournament, but just even looking at this fight with Edwin Rodriguez. Plus, on top of everything that I just listed, Andre Ward is fighting the bigger man. This dude couldn't make weight, so he clearly outweighed him. They weighed him the morning of the fight, part of the rehydration clause after he didn't make the initial weight by 2 pounds. And they weighed him at 8 a.m. and he had gained like 11 pounds or some shit. So Ward being out, he could have had ring rust, being inactive, he could have had kinks in his armor, and he was the smaller person in there. Edwin Rodriguez is known for power and just boxing ability. He knocked out Gradovich or Grachev, I'm sorry, who gave fits to Lucian Bute, and he looked good in this fight. So props to Andre Ward. What do I want to see next from him? Just steady performances like that, taking on good competition. There's a couple of people he can fight. The Bika fight, I don't really want to see. I think Bika, I don't see him beating him at all. So I don't see why Andre Ward already beat him. I don't see him improving enough to the point where he's going to beat Andre Ward. So I don't really want to see that fight. I will entertain a rematch with Carl Froch, of course. I think that's big. That's also in addition to being a big box office fight that I want to see. It'll be a big draw. You get a lot of people, especially if they have it in the UK. You get a lot of people. I don't think Andre Ward owes it to Carl Froch to make it in the UK, but it's a good chance to dethrone a fighter who has a fan base in his own hometown. And I think that does a lot for Andre Ward's resume and legacy, beating him again, where both fighters are at a good point in their career. Carl Froch has had some, he's strung along some impressive wins. He had a good rematch with Kessler. That was an entertaining, tough fight, hard fought, but he convincingly won it, in my opinion. He had the better game plan. He stayed patient, he did what he had to do to win. Lucian Bute, of course. So, Youssef Mack, there's a lot of people. So Carl Froch is looking good. So I think the stage is set for a rematch. Plus, like I said, I think it does good numbers, and I think it'll be good from a business perspective. Other fights, obviously, people are talking about Gennady Golovkin. Yes, I would love to see that fight. Gennady Golovkin, another fighter who's stringing impressive losses against smaller men in general. Ishida smaller, Gabe Rosado's first fight at 160, etc. But he also has some against actual middleweights like Curtis Stevens and Matthew Macklin. So he's doing what he has to do, and he's beating the people in front of him. And his competition is they're giving him some different looks. So it's really all we can ask. I just don't want to continue seeing him fight people out of the 154-pound division or lower or whatever. I think he needs to fight the top guys at 160. He's obviously ready. He's running through the lesser opponents. C fighters aren't going to beat him, that kind of thing. So Gennady Golovkin's doing what he has to do, running through any and everybody. He's trying to make the fights with the Martin Murrays, and they're backing out. So he's doing what he has to do. Him moving up in weight, a lot of people get power happy, and I think it'll be more difficult for Gennady Golovkin than a lot of people are admitting, because Gennady Golovkin, we've seen him at 160, again, sometimes with smaller people, but seeing him at 168 with arguably the number 2 guy on the pound for pound list, that's a different ball game. Someone who can frustrate you, cause you to miss, probably take your power better. Is not going to just sit there and let you hit him and pulverize him unanswered without throwing anything back. Andre Ward flexed his speed in his fight with Edwin Rodriguez, and Edwin Rodriguez is a big dude with punching power. So I think it's a more difficult fight for Gennady Golovkin than people are actually admitting. I think a lot of the casual fans are like, oh, Gennady Golovkin, but you have to realize moving up and down in weight, like moving up a weight class, there's a difference. That's why they have weight classes. I would like to see the fight. I think it's entertaining. I think Gennady Golovkin still has to fight some solid, like if he can fight Quillins or the Chavez Jr. or whoever, Sergio Martinez, obviously, and then that will set an even bigger stage for him to move up and fight Andre Ward, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to see what unfolds with that. I can see the storyline shaping already. Gennady Golovkin, again, just in my opinion, at 160, he has some more unfinished business. Keep running through the people at 160, and once that's cleared out, then move up and fight the Andre Ward. I don't think they should just rush it and all of a sudden, oh, he's moving up to 168 to fight Andre Ward. Because at this point, he hasn't even beat the top 5 people at 160. So I think don't do it prematurely. Wait for those things to happen, and if both fighters are still winning by then, shit, make the fight happen. Or if the fans are calling for it at that point, then make the fight happen. Other fights, Chavez Jr., Andre Ward called Chavez Jr. out recently. Chavez Jr. is a big dude, but he has unfinished business with Brian Vera. They're talking about moving that to 2014 in March now. That's the latest as far as Brian Vera and Chavez Jr. So I don't know when we would possibly see an Andre Ward, and I don't even know what Chavez Jr. is going to look like, because it's really a hit or miss type of deal with Chavez Jr. It's up to him how hard he wants to train and how he's going to look. So he wasn't impressive to me in his first fight with Brian Vera, so he has to really redeem himself in that fight. But there's a couple different options. Those are just a few. Like I said, props to Andre Ward. Shout out to the Bay Area. Props to him for coming off of a long layoff and doing what he has to do. And one thing that I definitely like about Andre Ward, aside from him just being a good person and great commentator and things like that, he listens to his corner. Some fighters, you tell them what to do in the corner, and it's like they just tuned you out in one ear out the other. They don't give a fuck what you said, and that's kind of disrespectful. But the things that Virgil Hunter was saying to him, the things that he was implementing in the fight, it showed that he was listening to his corner. He actually looks even attentive when his corner's talking to him. When Virgil Hunter's talking to him, he looks attentive. Some fighters, they look like they're not even making eye contact and paying attention to what what their corner has to say, and that's important. Why do you have that team if you can't trust them and you don't trust their lead? So Andre Ward, again, great performance. His jab was incredible, and I think a punch like that could throw a Gennady Golovkin off, who hasn't really shown head movement. Not to say Gennady Golovkin can't move his head, but he hasn't really had to show it, and he hasn't shown it enough to the point where I see him like running through Andre Ward, especially with that jab. That jab sets up a lot. Another thing I like Andre Ward that he does is Andre Ward mixes up his punches in a weird sequence to the point where you don't really know what he's going to throw. Some people have more robotic punches, and what I mean by that is they punch in a certain sequence where you can really get their timing down, and it's easy to kind of know what they're like. Oh, the left is coming next. You know what I mean? Based on what they did, you know exactly what they're going to throw next. But with Andre Ward, there's some deception, there's some trickery involved, because sometimes he starts downstairs and he'll punch to the body, and then like hook, and then have a jab, a real stiff power jab to the face, or just a crazy. It's like a creative order in which he throws his combinations, which is good, and that could pose problems for a fighter like Gennady Golovkin, especially if he's not moving his head. And it'll definitely be a chess match, if they are to fight, to see who lands that first shot. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Andre Ward, you hate him? Do you love him? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Where do you rate him? As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, is Ego signing off.